Welcome to Rock the Life, a podcast for fans by fans. I'm Katya.
I'm Amy.
Amy, today we have a little different story than we usually have.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than a fan story, we have a great inside scoop
Mm-hmm.
of someone who grew up in the 70s and 80s in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And what type of stories does she tell us, Amy?
Oh my gosh. This is I feel like a little bit of insider info. I feel a little bit of, rock and roll history meets Poison's Fallen Angel kind of a thing with the way that she started out and got her hands into the business. I feel like she's just one of those stories that you kind of go, holy cow, what an adventure. And to have her just share it with us, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm thankful she survived. You know what I mean?
Amy, it is one of those stories when you think about when you hear about kids that ran away from home and
Mm-hmm.
what happened. Like it is the whole
Yeah.
story. I was
Yeah.
quite mesmerized the
Mm-hmm.
whole time we talked to her and her
Mm-hmm.
background and her story
Mm-hmm.
and her perspective now, looking
Yeah.
back on it, of life in the music industry and on the
Yeah.
streets and knowing these
Yep.
bands from the clubs and how it all kind of came about. So this one's really interesting to me,
Yep. Yep.
and I really enjoyed hearing Sher Bach's story. And
Yeah.
that's who we'll be talking to today.
Yay! You guys, again, like we said, a little different, but hope you enjoy it. Here's Cher. Introduce you and say hi.
We're already off to
Yeah.
a good start. Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you so
Oh,
much for
Oh,
coming
yes.
on.
for inviting me.
We have
Thanks for
Oh,
having me.
Cher. Oh my gosh.
Redhead.
Love it.
we've had
Redheads.
so much, but yeah, now we have a different shade. Well, actually, Amy, show her the shirt, and we have the. I'm going to make you lift your shirt up right now. The
I
two
know.
different
Hold on.
shades
I
of
gotta
guitars
move my
Oh,
face
wait.
are
away.
There
Hold
we
on.
are.
Amy's hair
Yeah.
and my
Oh,
hair. So yeah, we can.
you told me. Yeah. That's cool. But
Oh,
I
you know what? I
remember
didn't have to do that. I could have just done
now
that.
when you were growing up, did they make fun of you for being a redhead?
Uh-huh.
Because
Uh-huh.
I mean, I did. I mean, I
I
was
did.
like,
For me, no.
oh, all. Where'd
I
you
got
grow up,
I got made fun of.
Katya?
I grew up. We grew up not too far from each other. I was in San Jose, California.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
So you did
And I
you
got teased.
good?
I was just gonna say I got teased both in Georgia and in California.
Oh, I got
Mm-hmm.
teased in New Jersey and Tennessee. So 'cause I
Mm-hmm.
spent my childhood on the shore and in the east. I would lose one accent because I
And get
living in
another.
Tennessee from like 4 years. From 4 years old, my parents got divorced when I was 7, and I was talking like this. I had a real heavy accent, and they sent me back to New Jersey to live with my mama, and I was
Yep.
talking like a Jersey girl, and then they sent me back to Tennessee to live with my dad. So everywhere I went, it was rejection. I was skinny, I had freckles, buck teeth, red hair, accent, flat chested, so it was like, I got used to being a tough ass, I guess.
Yep. Yep. I get it. I
Yeah.
get it. I was the redheaded stepchild. That's what I was.
You know what?
Don't
You know
believe. I
And
what's
don't
I
really
believe
had
good?
any of that, Amy.
Look
freckles,
at
real
you're
strong.
gorgeous. You're both gorgeous. I don't think I'm too bad. So when I go back to my high
No.
reunions and all of the guys
Yeah.
that teased me, they're all short, fat, and bald. And,
Mm-hmm.
ha ha, Karma
You're
Mm-hmm.
is
like,
a
ha
bitch.
ha.
And
That's
I
the
gained
thing,
weight,
right?
so I got boobs now. So when when they look at me, I go, yeah, yeah. Well, hey, and I didn't have.
And I like to think that they teased you because they liked you, and that was
That's
how
actually
they were so socially awkward that they couldn't otherwise
I
communicate with you.
actually had one guy say that to me. He said, "Well, I had a
Uh-huh.
crush on you, and that's why I teased you." And I went, "It's because he was trying to get me to go out with him." At that point, I was like,
Why do you want to go
"I
out
didn't
with
want to go
someone
out with
who's
you
a
in high school, but I want
dick?
to go out with you now."
Right?
You were a douchebag then,
Yeah, yeah.
Like a lot would have had to have changed by then.
Right? Exactly.
Well, you know what? Actually, that is a perfect segue of something I wanted to ask you.
Uh,
So, did I hear, is it correct that at 16 you left
Mm.
home
mm-hmm.
for New York
Yeah.
City and became a go-go dancer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sure did.
How did that
So,
how did you get that job?
oh God. Okay.
Well,
So
okay, ooh.
no. my mother, I love my mother. I miss her every day, but she was extremely controlling, and I was a free spirit kind. I wasn't into drugs or alcohol. I
Yeah.
was into boys. I definitely was into
I know what
boys.
that's
I was
like.
boy crazy, and she was extremely strict with me. Couldn't wear makeup. Couldn't, your shirt's too short. Your shirt's too short. Your skirt's too short.
Too short.
Blah, blah, blah. And you don't want to get in here looking like a whore. She's one of those kind of mothers. To segue real quick, I found out that my dad was not my dad. So that, to me, that was a God thing. Like he was.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you some information. But now looking back, it kind of makes sense. Like my mom was, obviously fell off the ladder. You know, with my married to my dad, and I was the product, and she kept it from me, kept it from everybody. I mean, maybe she didn't know, but there was a possibility that I was this man's child, because she obviously, messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I have 3 beautiful sisters that I didn't know about. And going back to the go-go dancing, there was a club that I worked at in Queens, right down the street from the Coventry, which is, as you know, where Kiss started, and my husband's band, the Harlots, started, and a lot of bands from those days played. Was called the Merry-Go-Round. And one of my sisters, so my full name is Cheryl Ann is my legal name. I have a sister named Cheryl from the same
That
father.
you found out.
From the same father,
Wow.
yeah. Spelled with a C. And her mother was a stripper at a club in Louisville, Kentucky called the Merry-Go-Round.
Oh,
So like
wow.
all these,
connections.
so all of these, synchronicity,
Yeah.
things happening. But anyway, so my mom, again, very controlling. And I don't even remember where she was or what happened, but I was always running away. I would run away. I'd be gone for, a day or two, and somebody would bring me home. Or, one time the police, they picked me up and took me to the juvenile detention center. And then when my mother showed up to pick me up, I said, nope, not going home. And she was like, what? I said, no, I'm having fun here. I have friends. I don't have to clean the house. I don't have to babysit your kids. I don't have, no, I'm fine here. So I was there for 2 weeks before the judge finally said, you have to go home. You have to go, and admonished my mother about, letting me be a kid, let her be a teenager, let her go to her friend's house, let her, stop.
Wow.
Look how, the hovering mother. So, something happened, and I was like, I'm out of here. And I met this girl on the boardwalk. I don't know if you know anything about the Jersey Shore, but Seaside Heights was the place that Toms River, New Jersey at that time was a podunk town. Everybody, all the guys wore work boots and flannel shirts. And the guys from New York and North Jersey were the rock stars, and they would come down and they would be dressed up nice, and we'd all hang out and make out and whatnot, and under the boardwalk. And I met this girl one night on the boardwalk, and she said, I'm running away to Los Angeles. I'm going to California. I want to go. And then there was another girl that was with us, a younger girl, and she said, I want to go. So let's go. So we decided to meet at this one place. And the following night, I packed up everything I owned, including my hot rollers, because I had long hair. I had hot rollers. I had one of those light up makeup mirrors that I'd gotten for Christmas. I mean, I had everything in one of those hard cases. This was, 1972, a white hard, I'll never forget it, white hard case suitcase. And then my stepdad's Navy duffel bag. So I'm lugging all this shit.
Oh my gosh.
Hitchhiking, get picked up. I take it to Seaside. We meet up. We start hitchhiking. We hitchhike to New York. We get picked up. That's a story for another time. But the first night was a horrible night. Horrible things happened. It's in my book if it ever gets published, ever gets finished. But long story short, I wound up. I was pretty much a street kid, but I never slept in the street. I always found some place to sleep, found a bed to sleep in. And it was rough. I mean, I'd stand on the corner of 6th Avenue and 8th Street, panhandling for change, to go into Nathan's to get French fries. That's what I lived on. French fries.
Wow.
French fries and a candy bar. That was, pretty much it. And for not even a month. I mean, within a month, I had a job. I got a job working in a deli. And they didn't ask for any ID. I, but the manager was a creeper. And after what happened to me my first night in New York, I vowed the next time somebody put their hands on me, they were going to get hurt. So he got hit with a frying pan, and I quit. I left, walked out, opened up the cash register. I didn't take anything other than what they owed me for the night. Took my money and walked out. And I was in the park, and I met this long-haired, good-looking guy, and he was like, you know, you want to come home with me? And I did. And turned out he was a writer. He was a rock writer, rock journalist. His brother, have you ever heard of Dustin Pittman? If you look him up, Dustin Pittman is a rock photographer. Okay. We called him Dusty, but that was his baby brother. So I moved in with Eddie, and Eddie said, hey, you know what? I know how you can make some money. The next thing I know, I meet this girl who's a former dancer. She takes me up to her agent, and she calls her agent, and she said, I've got this beautiful redhead. She's got legs up to her neck, and da-da-da. So I go and I meet him, and now I had been in dance club in high school. We did the popcorn, you know. To Motown. So I didn't know anything about bumping and grinding, you know, none of that. I was flat as a board. I mean, I was like an A cup, you know, but I had booty and I had legs and the hair. So I danced for Mambo, and Mambo was gay. Mambo was a professional flamenco dancer. I auditioned for him, and he said to me, you're beautiful, you got rhythm. He says, but you're not ready for New York. Let me send you over to this other agent. He books New Jersey, and I'm like, fuck, I just ran away from New Jersey.
Back home.
Right.
And I said, okay. And he goes, and you can work in the Jersey clubs. Now, at no time did anybody ask me, how old are you?
Old I was, yeah.
You know, I was 16. At the time in New York City, you could be 18, and the drinking age was 18. So you could work in clubs in 18. If you lived in New York and worked in New Jersey, you could work at 18, but it was 21 was the drinking age. You had to get what's called an ABC card, alcohol beverage. I forget what the C stands for. Yeah. And so I had gotten a fake birth certificate, and that's what I went with over to New Jersey. And I took the train into New Jersey, went to the ABC with the fake ID, and they gave me an ABC card. So I had an official ABC card with the wrong birth date on it, with a 50 state alarm out on me, by the way. I mean, they didn't have milk cartons yet, but they were, you know. And so anyway, I went to this other agent, and he hired me, like, you know, like I think I danced for like 20 seconds. He's like, you're hired. Whatever.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Well, he was actually, his office was in Manhattan. So I went from this luxurious penthouse apartment office to this rundown, you know, seedy office in Midtown Manhattan, with pictures of strippers all over the wall. You know, we called go-go dancing back then. Now there was a difference. You had strippers, which were burlesque, and then go-go dancers, which were topless. But in New Jersey, there was no topless dancing. You had to wear a top and a bikini bottom. Your ass couldn't be shown, your boobs couldn't be shown. So I auditioned for him. He hired me. I had to go get a costume. Here I am. I'm basically a homeless teenager. You know, was living with Eddie at the time. I had like $27 to my name, and so I go to this costume shop. They didn't have anything I could afford, so I'm like, I have to go back home and get money from Eddie. So as we're coming up out of the subway station, I was with a friend of mine who was also a runaway. Long story short, we got held up at gunpoint and knife point by this guy and another guy who took my $27 and my tokens to get on the subway. So I go back to I'm hysterical crying, you know, and I go back to the agent. I don't have no money. I got robbed. And then he's like, so he hands me $100 bill, and he said, go get what you need, get something to eat, and don't talk to strangers. So I went, got my costume, and that night, my first job was in Newark, New Jersey, the armpit of America, which is what Johnny Cash used to call it. And so that's how I remember the first night. I was scared to death. I walked in, there was a bunch of old men smoking cigarettes, and I looked at the jukebox, and there was all this old, like, Charlie Pride, Kiss an Angel, Good Morning, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't dance to this. This is my stepfather's music. Yeah.
Oh
And
no.
What did you pick?
I picked an angel, kiss an angel, good morning, because I knew it, and then Elvis Presley and like all this music that that was but it was that kind of bar. Eventually I got around to where I was working, better and better bars that had more up to date music. But I remember getting up on the stage and I kept my back to the audience most of the time. I could see myself in the mirror and I was just like, my little costume had a little fringe around it, and on my little 110-pound body just shimmying and, and bending over and going, and then turning around and going like this, and there's like nothing moving. It was, and going, hi, and then turning back around like, I walked out of there with like, I don't know, $50 in tips. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a
plus,
great.
Yeah.
plus my pay, which was, I think they paid like $35 a night at that time. So, almost $100 to, to stand up and dance. And, but eventually, the big city lights were calling. So I went back to Mambo and he hired me and I went to work for him. They were all mob owned clubs, So we had the
And this was 70. When was
72,
this?
70s.
1972. Yeah. But yeah. So that's how I started dancing. And then I danced for years. I mean, my last gig was after I had my second son. Because I would do that and then I'd quit and get a real job, and then I would do it and get, it was a good way to make, money. It was legal, I didn't have to worry. Nobody ever messed with me. Nobody. No, not with the mob clubs. Because one of our bouncers was Jake LaMotta. Remember Raging Bull?
Wow.
And,
Yes, absolutely.
You don't mess.
So
Don't mess with the girls.
yeah, but I was a fighter. So if somebody, like, I came off stage one time and guy grabbed my ass and I turned around and punched him in the throat. And all of a sudden I feel a hand
That's how
on
you
my
do
shoulder.
it. That's how you have to do it.
I turn around and Jake, let me do my fucking job here. And I'm like, he didn't grab your ass, he grabbed mine.
It's like, sure, you're
So they,
he's not getting up there and
funny.
dance. So
Right.
that was
Yeah.
exactly.
this. I mean, I cannot wait to read your memoir when it comes out because
Right.
I mean, there's this whole like vision of the like club scene
Yeah.
in the 70s.
And it's sad because there's so many documentaries out there now, and it's like I feel like I missed the boat because there's other girls have already written their books, their stories. I am really honest in my book, and so there's a lot of dark stuff in there. There's a lot of and it got really long to the point where I don't know if you know oh crap, Joyce, I can't think of her last name now, brain fart. She's a published author. She said to me, girl, it's too long. It's like War and Peace. You need to cut it down to decades. So like, do the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and then you'll have like more books to put out. But that's a good, so that's what
that's a great, I was like,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, don't cut your words, just keep going. Now, did you during that time period, did you ever like after you were dancing in the bars, did you go to the club scene in New York?
Oh yeah.
Was it
Oh, yeah.
Was it Studio 54 time?
I actually no. That was like late 70s.
80s?
I was not
Okay.
I went to Studio 54 one time, but I actually got into Xenons, which was another club on the other side of town. I preferred that because they had like these big speakers you could get up and dance on, and I would get up there. I slipped and slammed the inside of my thigh on the side of that thing, and I had a bruise from my crotch to my knee forever. But it was I just liked the crowd better. The crowd at Studio 54 was too uppity for me. But going back to my intro into the music scene, so Eddie, being the journalist, started bringing me. We went to Mercer Arts Center. Was the first place. I don't know if you've heard of the Mercer Arts Center. Mercer Arts Center was it was a grand ballroom for lack of a better word, and a lot of like that's where the New York Dolls started. I was in a band called I joined a band called Ruby and the Rednecks as a backup singer. There's a band called the Magic Tramps. All of these was the glitter rock era. God, there was so many bands. There were so many bands back then. And but I started going there, and the guy that that ran the door, he knew I wasn't of age, but he would look me up and down and he would go on inside. Yeah. And go on inside. Mike Quashie was, they called him the Limbo King. He was a limbo dancer, and he ran the door. But the Mercer Art Center was only, it was only open for a couple of months because behind it was this hotel. It was like it was at one point a very decadent, beautiful hotel where celebrities stayed. A lot of actors stayed there. And it just got run down, and somebody bought it and they turned it into like a welfare hotel. People, they were charging people like, $5-10 a night to stay there. And the night, I remember the day it happened, because I think it happened in 70, I want to say 72 or 73. The owner of Mercer Art Center noticed that the back wall in the club at the place was kind of bulging out and cracking. And he contacted the buildings department. Long story short, it collapsed. The wall between the hotel and the club collapsed, and it just brought everything down. So if you've ever seen the show Vinyl, it was on HBO, that one season.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So that scene where they have the guys dancing and the New York Dolls are on stage playing, and then the ceiling falls in on him. I was like, and there was, I still see on Facebook, I'll see like pictures and somebody go, was that the night that the ceiling fell in? And I'm like, that didn't really happen. And that was one of the reasons I didn't like the show. I knew the show wasn't going to go anywhere because it was taking real life people and real life situations and turning it into a fantasy. And that, like Johnny, making Johnny Thunders to be an asshole, and he wasn't. He was the sweetest guy, David Bowie, just, people from that era, just making them to be something that they weren't. And I was right. They didn't renew it for a second season. So I know my shit.
Did you ever meet or run into David Bowie?
Oh, okay. You want to hear my David Bowie story?
Yes, I adore him.
Okay.
So that
Okay. Angie Bowie, please forgive me. It's in the book, but this is the first time I'm actually talking about it out loud. Okay, so I was living in the Chelsea Hotel with the aforementioned the aforementioned girl that got me into go-go dancing, and we had a suite. We had a one-bedroom suite. Now, Rachel was bisexual, so sometimes I never knew who she'd have in the bed. And I came home. It was probably, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning, probably later than that, from dancing, and I was sweaty and I was tired, and I had to go. The bathroom was off the bedroom, so I had to go into the bedroom to use the bathroom, and had been sleeping in the living room. And I came into the bedroom, and she was in bed with this person. And I came out of the bathroom, and this person was sitting up in bed smoking a cigarette and translucent, so pale and skinny, translucent. And all I heard was, "Would you like to join us, love?" And I didn't even I kind of did one of these, like, no, I'm tired. And because then I realized it was a guy, but I was like, no, I'm tired. I just want to go to bed. So went to bed. Next morning I get up, and there's this man in Rachel's robe, and the sleeves are like short on him. And
looking fabulous.
He's cooking a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, cooking breakfast for us. And I looked up and I went, it's David Bowie. So that was my encounter with David Bowie.
Okay, in the Chelsea Hotel?
Yes, in the Chelsea Hotel. Yeah, in the Chelsea Hotel.
Isn't that epic?
And it, I never saw him again after that. And it was weird. I think it was because I was so used to seeing being at Max's Kansas City and all these, nobodies and the 82 Club, all these clubs, everybody, all the celebrities mingled. They weren't over here. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't a VIP section that you couldn't get into like it is now. I never paid for a ticket to get into a show. I never, it was
you just went in.
Plus I was a groupie, but I wasn't one of those groupies that, would, lack of a better word, blow the doorman so I could get in. It was like, no, you're fat and hairy and ugly, and no.
They look like gangster guys are going to get on you anyway.
Exactly. So there are other girls for you. There's other girls for you.
Right.
But and then but yeah, that was my encounter with David Bowie. But I wasn't like, Amy was asking me yesterday about people that I was like, flabbergasted about eating, gobsmacked when I met them. He wasn't one of them. I wasn't like gobsmacked. I thought it was funny that, he was this
Yeah.
skinny white dude, white. We're talking like, you could see, he almost looked like an alien. Like people used to say he fell from Earth. He looked like that in real life. But he was so sweet. He was just, his energy was just, he was just like a good guy. You know what I mean?
Good
Ziggy
guy.
Stardust. This was during the Ziggy Stardust days, so
Yeah.
72, so
I'm
wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
absolutely naming this clip David Bowie made me breakfast. Like, holy cow.
He made eggs,
I'm like, what on earth?
eggs and
That's wildly exciting.
yeah. I don't remember if it was good or not. But
Can the man cook?
I don't think it matters, does it?
Oh my gosh.
I did.
No.
Oh wow.
But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, he was a sweetheart. Okay, so there was a place called Nobody's on Bleecker Street in the Village.
Bleecker Street.
Yeah, we were all at Max's. It was me. I was dating Syl Sylvain from the New York Dolls at the time. David Johansen was with Serinda Fox. Serinda, if you remember who Serinda was Steven Tyler's first wife. But at that point, she was with David. She wasn't with Steven yet. And a bunch of us decided. David said, "I want to go check out this band, the Harlots of 42nd Street. I hear they're like our competition." So we all got into a checker cab. You've heard of the checker cab?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We all got in a checker because you could fit, 20 people. They're like a clown car. So we get to the club. The band goes on. We're up in the back the bleachers of the club watching this band, and they weren't anything like the New York Dolls. I mean, they dressed up like women, they wore makeup and whatnot, but their music was nothing like the Dolls. The Harlots were more like pop rock. The Dolls were more like punk rock. So afterwards, we go backstage, and the lead singer is standing off to the side, and he's kind of glaring at us like he smelled something bad, and David loved them. David, in fact, Gene to this day used to think that Dolls didn't like him or David didn't like him. He loved you guys. He thought you were fucking hilarious, but he didn't like the fact that he thought they were hilarious because I'm a serious musician. No, you're not. You're wearing makeup. Your bass player's wearing fishnet stockings. Your drummer, who weighs 300 pounds, is wearing hot pants. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not serious
that.
musicians. But anyway, we hung out there for a little while, and then somehow, I think it was Gene's birthday. The bass player was seeing my girlfriend Rachel. We were all out hanging out one night, and Frankie said, "Why don't you come back to my house?" And we trekked it back to Brooklyn and walked up the stairs, and this guy came out of the bedroom in a robe and glasses, and Frankie pushed me to him and said, "Here's happy birthday," and shoved me to him, and he took his glasses off, and then I realized it was the singer from the Harlots. I was like, okay. He was cute, and I think I was on a Quaalude too. The Quaaludes were big back then. I wasn't much into the hard stuff like cocaine, and I didn't smoke pot or anything, but Quaaludes, yeah, I like those. So I woke up the next morning to this guy sitting on the end of the bed in a suit and glasses, and I'm going, okay, I never had workouts. Where'd you come from? He goes, "Oh, I work on Wall Street during the day." I was like, "Oh, okay." He says, "Well, you don't have to get up. You can, stay as long as you want. Just make sure you lock the door when you leave." Okay. And that's how our relationship started. And the New York Dolls had gone to Europe, and so Syl and I weren't serious. It was kind of like we just kind of faded away, but we always stayed friends. I mean, he was living here when he died. He was here in Nashville. So, but next thing you know, I was gone a year. So it was 1973, and I'd gotten my own apartment. Never lived with Gene. Always had my own place. Mostly hotels. Martha Washington, the Chelsea, and then so I'm going to get my own apartment. So I found an apartment downstairs from his ex-wife.
Oh, I love it.
His ex-wife had married the drummer in the band. The 300-pound guy in the hot pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
everybody's
actually, no.
loving everybody.
So
I spent some time in New York and would go down to that area, and I loved it.
Yeah. So Terry, she said, there's an apartment downstairs available. Do you want it? It was like a small 1-bedroom in Brooklyn Heights. And so I took it. I didn't have hardly any furniture. I was like, buying little things piecemeal here and there. And when you're 16, 17 years old, you don't think about the impact that it's doing to your parents. It's like, I think back now, what my mother went through, wondering where I was and how I would feel if it were my boys, it would kill me. So I guess I got a little bit of moral, compass at that point and said, I got to let her know I'm still alive. So I went and got an Easter card. Dear Mommy, I'm okay. I have a good job. I didn't tell her what I was doing. I have a great boyfriend named Gene. Da 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 da. Have my own apartment. Da da da. And I gave it to him and I said, would you mail this for me? 3 days later, I'm in his ex-wife's apartment babysitting their son. Phone rings. Hello? Cheryl? Yeah? This is your mother. Do you remember the horror film? Do you remember the horror film where the girl answers the phone and the tongue comes through the mouthpiece?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that?
How did she find you?
Well, he mailed it from work. Then she traced the postal meter on the envelope.
Ooh, your mom's like
Sherlock Holmes. That's
Go
my
mom.
name is Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, because I will find dead people alive, and I got that from her. She was like, she's gonna find your ass. So she said, I'm at Jean's office. I'm like, oh my God.
She went there. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this.
She shows up, she walks in, she goes, do you have somebody named Jean working here? And they said, we have a Jean Knapp. And she said, okay, I'll talk to him. So he comes out. She said, hi, do you know a girl named Sher Bach? And he goes, I know a girl named Sher Beckwith. So stupid me, I should have picked a completely different name because then she probably wouldn't have found me. But Sher was my nickname. Beckwith was my grandmother's newly married name, my father's mother's second name.
Wow.
So that was on all my ID, Sher Beckwith. So she goes, well, do you know she's only 17 years old? He goes, no, because he thought at that point I was 19, because my 17th birthday was my 19th birthday. So she goes, well, you need to tell me where she is, or I'm going to have you arrested for statutory rape, harboring a minor. And so he gave her Terry's number. And of course, I'm sure he was like freaking the fuck out, because he went to law school. So he,
oh yeah,
he knew what kind of deep doo-doo he was in. So she came and met me, and my mother was one of those, with the white gloves. I can't believe you're living here.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, this is like a movie scene.
It's like old
It is.
an old building, old brownstone, like, you've seen the old brownstones in New York.
Yeah.
My house was clean, but it wasn't, to her standards, And she says, you need to come home. She gave me an ultimatum. You either come home or I'm going to have him arrested. So I went home. But, and here's the plot twist. Here's where the dysfunction in my family comes into play. She still allowed me to go to New York and dance. She still allowed me. My stepfather used to drive me to the bars in New Jersey, and I was still underage. So years and years and years and years and years later, we got into an argument one time, and I brought that up. And she started crying, and she said, she goes, I knew if I didn't let you do it, you would have run away again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She listened to the parole officer, right? I mean, that's what he told her, to give you some freedom to do some things.
Yeah. So I was going to New York a couple of times a week, and I would go up early, and I would go to Jean's apartment. The next thing you know, I was pregnant. Well, so I remember the day.
As a teenager. You're a teenage mom?
I was 17.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
And best thing I ever did. My son is my greatest gift. Both of my boys. Yeah. And then my grandkids following. But
right.
he, my ex-husband wanted me to have an abortion, and I said no, I'll do it on my own. So I did. I was with my mother, and again, another funny story. Terry, we stayed close, and she would come down because it was Jersey Shore. We were by the beach. She would come down in the summer with hers and Jean's son, who was at the time like 4 or 5 years old. And one morning, and I was huge. One morning, I got up to go pee, and I flipped my legs over the bed, and water broke. So I'm in the hospital in labor with my baby daddy's ex-wife, my mother. Those were the two people that were there for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it's like the last two people on earth
and he heard from his ex-wife called him and said, "You have a son. You have another son." That's how he got the news.
You know what? Like, good for her. Like,
yeah,
that's incredible for her.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something. And I remember, I left my mother's house with my baby, and that's again a long story, trying to get out of her house. But eventually, Terry and Tony came down and got me and moved me back up to New York. And he had built me a room in their apartment. He was a locksmith, amazing, very very talented carpenter. And so they had one of these apartments that they had like 15-foot ceilings. Like you could actually build another floor.
Yeah.
And so he built another floor, and my bedroom was upstairs. Baby's bedroom was downstairs. He had his own little spot, a little place with his cradle and whatnot. And Jean came by. He would come by almost every day to see the baby and see his other son. It was like, match made in heaven, man. He's got both kids right there. He gets to see both of his sons.
Wow.
And one night he came in, he got on his hands and knees and asked me to marry him. So, yeah. So we had our wedding reception at his ex-wife's house.
That's good. It's all in the family, right?
I got to backtrack. I had my baby shower at his ex-wife's house.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
She's been dead for a couple of years now. So, but she had issues, but that wasn't one of them. Being loving and kind and giving was not one of them.
Yeah.
Did the brothers stay close?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gene Jr. is he's in California somewhere. Southern California. He had a problem with drugs. Well, so did his mom. Terry had a problem with speed. But and then I think it was marijuana or pot. We lost contact for years. For many years, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, like, in the go-go dancing scene in New York and New Jersey, were you close to the other dancers? Was it like you worked for one club, or were you like private contractors where you would go to the different clubs? Because I know that's like my later concept.
So Mambo booked all the Manhattan clubs, and he had a couple of like in the boroughs, but at that point I was still just working Manhattan, and it was all owned by the mob. So it was like Matty Iannello, they called him Matty the Horse, owned the 49er. Do you remember the Odd Couple, the show The Odd Couple?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
These actors walking up the street, and you see the red banner. It says topless, and he looks in the window. Yeah, that was the 49er. Then you had the Mardi Gras, the Metropole right next door to that, which was separately owned. You had the Carnival, Peppermint Lounge, the Circus, I think it was called, Top Circus. There was about 7 or 8, and they were all like within a 10-block radius. And you would work different clubs every night. So one night you'd work Mardi Gras, the next night you work 49er. You could work. You wanted to work a day shift. You worked your day shift. I didn't get really close with a lot of the dancers, but I did get close with a lot of the strippers, a lot of the burlesque dancers.
Okay.
They kind of took me under their wing. They knew I was young. In fact, originally when I first went there, Bob wanted me to come on because you look like the girl next door. So your stage name's going to be Mary Jane. And he sent me to this costumer, and she fitted me in this emerald green to match the red hair. And I was like, oh my God, my mother used to make me wear green. Did your mother do that too? Make you wear green all the time?
My prom dress was green.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, you can't wear pink because it clashes. You can't wear red. You're a redhead. You get green. I'm like a fucking leprechaun. I don't want to wear green all the time. So he takes me to this costumer, and she fits me in this skin tight satin, like uh, Jessica Rabbit style gown, right?
Love.
I made fucking boku bucks. If I could have held on to my money and not dated musicians and wasn't in love with shoes and boots, I would, I'd be a rich woman. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, and I know there's a world of stories in between, but how did you like kind of like your work in the dancing like influence you later on in music and producing and what you're doing?
Yeah.
Or
Where's that step
the
Well,
music
through?
business.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
so I was the way I got the gig at a coin management was a fluke, basically. I mean, I knew the guys in Kiss from the Coventry. They would play
Mm-hmm.
there. My husband's band would play there. My band would play there. So we all kind of we all knew each other. We all played the same clubs, same venues. And my girlfriend Denise, who was also a dancer, had dated Paul Stanley. So uh, I was I was my girlfriend Denise was visiting from Florida. I'm trying to do the timeline here, and she had brought a friend of hers who her name was Alina, and she was a DJ in Florida, and she was wanted to come to New York and get a job as a DJ in New York, and she had gotten a job as a nanny working for this accountant. I had no idea who he was or who he worked for, but she got in a job working as a nanny. And one afternoon, I was home and I was dancing. I was still dancing, and I answered the phone. And this guy said, "Can I speak to Alina?" And I said, "She's not here right now. I can take a message." He said, "Well, this is Marvin Mann, and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Well, I could take a message." And he said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, uh, uh, I don't even remember what I told him. I know I didn't tell him I was a dancer because that was kind of like you didn't broadcast it, that you were a dancer
Mm-hmm.
like they do
Mm-hmm.
today, but um, I don't even remember what I told him I did. But he said, "You have a great voice." He says, you do phone very well." He said, "Are you looking for work?" And I was like, "Doing what?" And he says, "Well, we need a part-time receptionist at my office." And I said, "Well, what's your office?" And he said, "A coin management, Rocksteady Productions." And I went,
Amazing.
"Oh, okay."
Amazing.
So he hired me over the phone. I mean, I went down and met him for like 15 minutes, and he said, "You start tomorrow." And so I started answering the phones part time, and then I started doing little things. Rick Aliberti was the head of promotions, and he had an assistant, Gail Rogers. And at that point, this was when Kiss. So we had Kiss, we had Stars, STARZ, those
Mm-hmm.
guys. We had Toby
Mm-hmm.
Bow. We had Piper, which was Billy Squires' first band.
Mm-hmm.
New England. We had a couple of actors that were coming and going. There was a lot of stuff that was going on that I didn't really know about because it wasn't part of my job. But I started helping Rick Aliberti out with some of the stuff that Gail was, helping Gail out, and they offered me full time. So
Wow. And
there
did you
Wow.
want to get out of dancing, or how was
I
that
did.
difference, like
Yeah,
working in an office
yeah,
versus?
dancing was, I mean, it was, it's really hard on your body, very hard on your body.
Yeah, yeah.
And I liked the money, but yeah, I mean, working in an office, especially in that caliber, and that was,
Yeah.
that was a big deal. And the thing is that a lot of the people that I worked with, I kind of knew from the club scene because they were all hanging out at Max's. So it
There
was
you
just
go.
like working with my friends, you know. A lot of wild shit went on at coin management. I mean, I remember Rick. In fact, Rick and I we were just talking about this a couple of months ago. I said, "Do you remember the time you sent me to pick up your airline tickets?" He goes, I said, and I came back.
70s, man.
Yeah, he gave me money. Take a cab. He goes, take a cab. I take a cab. It's like 10, 15 blocks away, and I was a walker. I mean, I walked everywhere. But I go down. I go to this travel agency. They give me like what looks like a box of checks. I bring it back to the office. Everybody's gone. He's on this. He's on a speakerphone when I walk in the office. He puts the box down. He takes the letter opener. He opens it up, and it's full of Coke. And he just starts putting the lines out. And so we're doing lines while he's talking on the phone. And that was so like there were certain aspects of that show Vinyl that were very true. I mean that happened. That was
Yeah.
really the
Yeah.
downfall of the coin was were the drugs.
Yeah.
Was the
Yeah.
drugs that came
Yeah,
in?
yeah.
It's just It's like a history marker in the scene,
Yeah.
just between like 70s, 80s, and I love your step up and your rise. Like I
Thank
absolutely
you.
adore that. Like for you, it to me it demonstrates your strength and your work ethic, and just, I mean, if you hadn't answered the phone, I mean, talk about a sliding door.
Hmm.
You know,
Yes,
if you,
exactly.
I'm just like, a phone call
Yeah.
changed
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
so
And
much, and
Marvin,
I'm just
I
like,
keep in touch
I
with
love
Marvin
that.
through LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's moved on. I mean, I'm friends with pretty much everybody from that era. And as a matter of fact, when I
Yeah.
moved to Nashville, I moved to Nashville the first time in 1998, 97.
Wow. Okay.
And I went to work. I'd been working for Playgirl magazine, but yeah, I was with the Coin for about 2 years, and then shit started falling apart. Went to Barry Imhoff after that. Barry Imhoff managed Santana at one point. Michael Shreve, and then he came
Mhm.
out with, I don't know if you remember the mirrored album covers from the late
Mhm.
'70s. Do you remember those? Like Fleetwood Mac.
Mhm.
Everybody had mirrored
Mhm. Mhm.
albums. So he was the one that had those. And I was only there for a couple of months because his office manager was sexually harassing me. So I was like, nah, I'm out of here. And then from there, I went to Puerto Rico. I went back to dancing, went to
Wow.
Puerto Rico, and lived there for a year, 2 years, came back to New York. Um, but I always wound up
Yeah.
going back to the music, the
Yeah.
entertainment. But I had been working at Playgirl, and left when my father died. I came to Tennessee for his funeral, realized I didn't want to be in the city anymore, and I don't want to say I wanted to be in Tennessee. I just didn't want to be in New York. So next step, Nashville, because music.
Yeah.
Music
And
Yeah.
scene, massive.
so
Yeah.
How long did you work for Playgirl, really
I was
quickly?
7 years.
Like,
7 years.
okay, so
Yeah.
what years were those? Do you
Um,
remember?
1992, 99, yeah, 1992
Okay.
to 1997, 98, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd
I
have to
just,
look at
the
my
only
resume,
thing,
my exact resume.
like, I never,
Well,
like,
we
I
also
mean,
had
we would see. Oh, sorry.
no,
Go
we
ahead.
also had a bunch of men's magazines. So High
Mhm.
Society,
Mhm.
Cherie.
I just remember one episode specifically because we had seen it in a thing, and I think one of our group may or may not have purchased, allegedly purchased, the Bret Michaels episode,
Okay. So you know who was in
The
that?
Bret
You know who
Michaels
was in
one.
that
Hmm.
episode too? Was
Hmm. Hmm.
Jesse James Dupree from Jackal.
Oh,
Was that
Yeah.
your influence,
okay.
Cher?
Well, I didn't know
Right.
him yet. I did not know him. It was funny because I wasn't at the shoot, but I remember when they were setting it up. He said, "I'll only do it if my wife can be in the shoot." So they dressed his wife up like a cop, and they did the shoot. And then
Nice.
about 3 or 4 months later, they opened for Ted Nugent for Damn Yankees at Radio City,
Mm-hmm.
and I was with my boyfriend, and we went backstage, and he had been in a band with Jesse James like years earlier.
Oh, wow.
And we went
Mm-hmm.
backstage, and we were talking. And I remember pointing him and said, "I've seen you naked." And
I know what's
oh my
underneath.
gosh, to
Yeah.
this day, we bust his chops about it. In fact, his agent is here in Nashville, and when I met him, because I'm a member of AIBA, International Entertainment Buyers
Mhm.
Association. We had our conference last year, and I met him, and I said, "Tell him that you met somebody who worked for Playgirl magazine." He goes, "He doesn't really like to talk about that."
It's kind of like with Justin was on with Hustler, and they had music within,
Right.
Hustler, and then with Playgirl they also had that aspect of it. So
Well, my
I
guy
just
Douglas Starr, he worked for Larry Flint
yeah.
Productions. So he worked for Rip
And
Mag.
then to rip.
He
Yep.
worked for Rip. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So he's got tons of stories too.
Cher, I can't wait to hear like the rest of this. Thank you so much for sharing and sharing.
Sharing. Share.
Thank you so much for coming on the show
Thanks for having
and
me.
bringing us up to this point in just what's been an amazing uh, journey for you, ups and downs and hard fought battles and struggles, but looking back on it and just kind of all the things, it's I can't wait to hear more.
Well, I have more. I can't wait to tell you.
That's awesome. Alrighty, so we'll say goodbye
Okay.
for now, and we'll
Thank you
see you
so
again soon
much. Ciao. Be
next week.
safe, everybody. And have a wonderful
Yes.
weekend.
Alrighty,
Besos.
thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Cher. That was a lot of fun. I am so enjoying her stories and her memoirs, which she's going to put in writing
Right.
at some point,
Right.
to get out to tell us about what life was like in the 70s, 80s,
Yeah.
90s, and
Yeah.
like 2000s and beyond of her
Yeah.
incredible life
Yeah.
in the business.
She really had an amazing story to tell, and I can't wait to hear the rest, you guys. So this is part one. Hope you'll join us for part two for even more fun stories, to hear kind of more about Cher and this amazing life that she's led.
I mean, this is just part of the story because there's more to tell. She
Yes,
has
yes.
more to tell,
Next
and
week.
from what's
Yeah.
happening. I was going to say, Amy. So what have you been listening to this week? Got anything to tell me about?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so way back when we had Leather Leone on the show, we've had Steve Brown on the show, and we had Amy from Amy's Music Machine, Big Talk Nation, and Girl with a Groupie Heart, right? So we've had these three people on the show. They all have something in common where they've kind of it's all come together this week. Lorraine Lewis has released her next video. Oh my word. Living Like There's No Tomorrow. Okay, this song is fun, it's catchy, it's encouraging. Like, it's one of those, like, if you ever feel like bleh, then this is a song that you absolutely want to listen to, because it just reminds you to be there. It just reminds you. I can't even put it into words how encouraged I was. And the video is so great. Girl looks amazing, okay? She looks incredible. She's skydiving in this silvery, sparkly thing. And towards the end of the video, she like races this, 20 something guy or whatever, I don't know, with Amy and Dawn in the video. And I'm really hoping that Amy is going to be able to come on the show and tell
Is
us
that
about what.
Dawn? Dawn
Dawn
who?
is Dawn is Hail You Rockers out there. So if you've ever seen any of her little live videos or anything like that, but her and Amy get in a lot of trouble together, and this was one weekend in Vegas
Ah, look.
with Lorraine Lewis. So can you even imagine? I'm like, holy cow. So hopefully Amy will be able to come on and talk to us about it. But I think Steve Brown produced it. He may have co-written it, but I'm not totally
Oh,
sure. But yeah, there's our Steve Brown connection. So I'm just so excited about this video. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So definitely a song worth listening to. It's going to stick in your brain, and it's a good one to stick in your brain. So that's where I'm at this week.
and Amy, where did you see it? Did you see it on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? To YouTube.
Instagram and YouTube, essentially, or especially. We
Okay.
of course, Rock the Life Girl follows Steve and Amy and Lorraine, so they're all sharing it. So I was like, "Where's the link? Where's the link? Where's the link?" So just kind of digging for it. It literally came out yesterday. So this is Wednesday. So brand new video. Excellent. I love it so much. We will include the link to the video in the show's description. But you guys, again, different kind of an interview for us this week. But if you liked it, like and subscribe, leave us a comment below. Make sure you're following us on our socials. Right now, it's primarily Instagram at Rock the Life Girl. If you have a story to tell, an adventure that you've had, please feel free to reach out to amy.rockthelife@outlook.com. Make sure you go to rtlmerch.com and get yourself a shirt, a mug, a hat, a scarf. What else do you need? Sweatshirt, but it's summer, so maybe not.
I wear my baseball cap all the time.
It's so cute. I need to get me one. I love it. I thought it was a trucker hat, and those never fit me right. Like my ears stick out. And then Clay goes, no, I designed it so it would be one that would work for you. And, you know, women in general. And I was like, oh. So now I got to get me one. All right, you guys. I hope you have an amazing week. And don't forget, rock the life.
Rock the life. Bye.
Bye. Love you, babes.
Love you.